Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
The battle for custody in Port Charles has never been a smooth or predictable journey, and this time the stakes are higher than ever. With the lives of so many families intertwined, the shocking development that Britt Westbourne could end up with custody of Rocco Falconeri has left everyone stunned and questioning how far the scales of justice can tilt when emotions, secrets, and manipulation are in play. Lulu Spencer, who has fought tirelessly to protect her son and keep him grounded despite the chaos around him, now finds herself in a devastating downward spiral. The thought of losing Rocco shakes her to her very core, but in true soap opera fashion, the unthinkable seems to be happening. For years, Lulu believed that she would always have the upper hand when it came to raising her child, but as the tides in Port Charles shift, she is being stripped of everything that once defined her, her family, her stability, and even her sense of identity as a mother. What makes this twist even more brutal is how unexpected it feels in light of everything Lulu has endured. She has survived heartbreak, betrayal, comas, and more than her fair share of dangerous showdowns. Through it all, her love for Rocco has been a steady flame, giving her a reason to keep fighting. But when the courts begin to question her judgment, her ability to provide a stable environment, and her history of putting herself in risky situations, Lulu's once strong case crumbles piece by piece. In the meantime, Britt, who has made a name for herself in Port Charles as both a manipulator and someone capable of surprising growth, seizes the opportunity to present herself as the best choice for Rocco's future. Her carefully crafted image, along with her unexpected alliances, gives her the leverage she needs to pull off what many would call the ultimate betrayal. The courtroom showdown becomes the epicenter of this heartbreak. Lulu walks in with determination written all over her face, armed with the belief that no judge could possibly take her son away. Yet Britt arrives polished, prepared, and far more strategic than anyone gave her credit for. She paints herself not as the selfish schemer people remember, but as a woman who has overcome her past, worked hard to redeem herself, and is ready to provide Rocco with the stable, loving home that Lulu supposedly cannot. Witnesses are called, evidence is presented, and slowly, Lulu begins to realize that the walls are closing in. Every mistake she has ever made is dragged into the light, her dangerous family ties, her reckless decisions, and her inability to shield Rocco from the chaos of her life. What was supposed to be a fight for her child begins to feel like a public shaming, and Lulu finds herself drowning in a tide of accusations and painful reminders. What makes this situation even more gut-wrenching for Lulu is the fact that many of the people she thought would stand by her seem to falter under pressure. Dante, Rocco's father, is torn in ways that Lulu cannot fully comprehend. While he has always been fiercely protective of his son, Dante also recognizes that Lulu's life has been anything but simple. The idea of Rocco being pulled into yet another storm worries him, and Britt's argument for stability begins to sound less absurd. His conflicted testimony sends shockwaves through the courtroom and leaves Lulu feeling betrayed by the very man she once trusted most. Dante doesn't outright side with Britt, but his hesitancy to fully back Lulu is enough to weaken her case and strengthen Britt's claim. Lulu's devastation grows when she realizes that her greatest ally has become one of her biggest obstacles, even unintentionally. Outside the courtroom, the whispers and judgments of Port Charles residents amplify Lulu's pain. People who once supported her question whether she is truly the right person to raise Rocco, and Britt skillfully uses this doubt to her advantage. She plays the role of the victim who has turned her life around, winning sympathy where Lulu expected skepticism. The irony of the situation is not lost on anyone. Britt, who was once known as the Britch, now appears to be the more trustworthy option. The public perception alone sways the energy of the case, and Lulu feels increasingly isolated. Her friends try to reassure her, but their encouragement rings hollow when the legal momentum shifts so dramatically in Britt's favor. When the verdict is finally delivered, the weight of the decision is almost too much to bear. The judge grants custody of Rocco to Britt, citing Lulu's unstable history and Britt's apparent commitment to providing a safe environment. The words cut Lulu to her soul. She sits in stunned silence as Britt holds back tears of victory, clutching the documents that declare her Rocco's legal guardian. For Lulu, time seems to stop. She can hardly comprehend how everything has slipped away so quickly, how all the love and effort she poured into raising her son could be so easily dismissed by a system that values appearances over heart. The room blurs around her, and all she can hear is the echo of her own heartbreak as her world collapses. The aftermath of the custody decision sends shockwaves through Port Charles, not just for Lulu but for everyone connected to her. Outside the courthouse, Britt emerges into the crisp air with an expression that is a complicated mix of triumph and disbelief. For once, she has managed to outmaneuver the doubters, and the law is officially on her side. She has Rocco. Yet beneath her polished smile, there is an undercurrent of unease. Winning custody of a child is not the same as winning a medical case or a scheme. Rocco is a living, breathing reminder of responsibility, and even as she clings to her victory, she knows the road ahead won't be easy. Still, she tells herself that she has earned this chance, that she deserves the opportunity to prove everyone wrong about her. For Lulu, the experience feels like a nightmare that won't end. The courthouse empties around her, but she can't move. The verdict replays in her mind over and over until it becomes unbearable. Dante approaches her cautiously, his guilt evident in every step he takes. He tries to comfort her, telling her they will find a way to appeal, that this isn't the end, but Lulu pulls away. The sting of betrayal cuts too deep. In her eyes, Dante's hesitation during testimony was the nail in the coffin, the silent acknowledgement that he didn't believe in her the way she believed in him. Tears blur her vision as she walks away from him, unable to face the man who once promised to stand beside her through everything. As days turn into nights, Lulu's life takes on a hollow rhythm. She visits Rocco unallowed, but every moment feels like borrowed time. Instead of waking up to her son's laughter or helping him with his schoolwork, she must rely on the strict schedule the court has imposed. Supervised visits, limited hours, and the constant awareness that Britt is the one making the final decisions about Rocco's care, it all gnaws at Lulu's soul. For someone who has always defined herself as a mother first, this new reality is unbearable. She lashes out at friends who try to console her, insisting that no one truly understands what it feels like to be stripped of the most important part of her life. Meanwhile, Britt does everything she can to project the image of a capable and loving guardian. She redecorates her apartment, transforming it into a child-friendly space filled with toys, books, and bright colors. She enrolls Rocco in activities, attends parent meetings at school, and makes a point of being seen around town with him. Every move she makes is carefully calculated to reinforce the narrative that she is the stable, nurturing figure the court believed her to be. And to Rocco, who is still young and impressionable, the adjustment is confusing but not entirely unwelcome. He misses his mother deeply, but he also begins to see Britt as a constant presence, someone who provides structure in ways that Lulu never seemed to. This duality tears Lulu apart even further. The sight of Rocco smiling in Britt's care feels like betrayal, even though she knows her son is innocent in all of this. Nina Reeves, who has long harbored complicated feelings toward both Britt and Lulu, takes a vested interest in the situation. She sees Britt's triumph as both surprising and precarious. In her conversations with Britt, she offers encouragement but also subtle warnings. Winning custody is one thing, Nina tells her over coffee at the Metro Court. Keeping it? That's something else entirely. Don't forget, Port Charles never lets anyone keep what they love without a fight. Britt listens, her pride pushing her to brush off the warning, but the words linger in her mind long after Nina leaves. She knows Nina is right, Lulu will not go quietly into the shadows. And indeed, Lulu begins to plot her next move. The pain of losing Rocco fuels a new determination within her. She consults with attorneys, explores avenues for appeal, and even considers the possibility of exposing Britt's past misdeeds as a way to weaken her hold. But Lulu is also battling exhaustion, both physical and emotional. Every time she takes a step forward, she feels the crushing weight of despair pulling her back. Her dreams are haunted by visions of Rocco calling out for her while Britt keeps him just out of reach. Yet despite the darkness consuming her, she refuses to give up. She reminds herself that Spencer women are fighters, and she vows to reclaim her son no matter what it takes. In the midst of this turmoil, Dante's role becomes increasingly complicated. He is torn between his duty as a father, his love for Lulu, and his own guilt over how everything unfolded. He visits Rocco often, trying to bridge the gap between the two households, but in doing so, he unintentionally deepens the divide between himself and Lulu. She accuses him of siding with Britt, of undermining her when she needed him most. Their arguments grow more heated, filled with accusations, regrets, and unresolved pain from their past. What was once one of the strongest couples in Port Charles now teeters on the brink of collapse, their relationship crumbling under the strain of the custody battle. Even as Britt basks in her newfound role, cracks begin to show in her carefully constructed facade. Late at night, when Rocco is asleep, she questions whether she truly deserves this chance. She remembers all the lies she told, the manipulations she orchestrated, the schemes that earned her the nickname that still echoes in whispered tones, the Britt. Can someone with her past really be the kind of mother Rocco needs? These doubts creep into her mind, threatening to unravel her confidence. But every time she looks at Rocco, she steels herself. She tells herself she must succeed, not just for her sake but for his. The citizens of Port Charles watch from the sidelines, divided in their opinions. Some believe Britt has truly changed and deserves this chance to prove herself. Others rally behind Lulu, convinced that she has been unfairly robbed of her child. The tension seeps into every corner of the town, making the custody battle not just a personal tragedy but a public spectacle. And through it all, Lulu feels the crushing weight of isolation, realizing that the world she once relied on is slipping further and further away. The strain of losing custody begins to take a dangerous toll on Lulu. Once known for her fiery spirit and resilience, she now drifts through her days in a fog of anger and despair. Friends like Maxie and Laura try desperately to reach her, encouraging her not to let this battle consume her entirely, but Lulu finds it almost impossible to listen. Every conversation circles back to Rocco. Every breath feels like it carries the weight of his absence. The once lively home that used to echo with laughter and arguments now feels like a mausoleum, filled only with memories and silence. Lulu moves through it like a ghost, consumed by grief yet burning with a determination to claw back what was taken from her. Laura, her mother, becomes her fiercest supporter during this time. She reminds Lulu that she has faced impossible odds before, kidnappings, betrayals, comas, and heartbreak, and has always found her way back to the light. But Lulu, weakened by the sting of betrayal from Dante and the court system, struggles to hear the encouragement. She lashes out even at Laura, accusing her of not understanding the depth of her loss. For Lulu, it isn't just about custody, it's about identity. She feels stripped of her purpose, as though everything that once anchored her to life has been stolen in one swift decision. At the same time, Britt's new life with Rocco begins to settle into a rhythm that feels alarmingly natural. She takes pride in the little victories, helping him with homework, making him laugh with silly voices, tucking him in at night. Each of these moments feels like evidence that she truly can handle motherhood, that the court made the right decision. Yet, there is always a shadow lurking in the back of her mind. She knows that Lulu is watching, waiting, and plotting. Every time she sees Lulu's haunted eyes during supervised visits, a pang of guilt pierces her chest. But Britt forces herself to push those feelings aside. She convinces herself that guilt has no place in motherhood, only strength. If she lets doubt consume her, she risks losing everything she fought so hard to gain. Dante finds himself stuck in the crossfire of this emotional war. His loyalty is torn in pieces, one part with Lulu, who is spiraling into despair, and another part with Rocco, whose stability must come first. He doesn't trust Britt completely, but he cannot deny that Rocco seems to be thriving in her care. His son's happiness is undeniable, and it eats away at him that Lulu cannot provide the same kind of stability right now. When he tries to express this to Lulu, she reacts with fury, accusing him of abandoning her and betraying their family. Their once solid bond fractures even further, and Dante begins to fear there may be no way back to the love they once shared. Elsewhere in Port Charles, the ripple effects of the custody battle spark heated debates. Maxie, torn between loyalty to Lulu and her knowledge of Britt's past, finds herself walking on eggshells. She wants to support her best friend, but she also remembers the times Britt showed genuine kindness and vulnerability. Carly, on the other hand, has no such hesitation. She openly condemns Britt's win, telling anyone who will listen that Lulu has been cheated. Carly insists that Britt is not capable of putting Rocco's needs before her own, and she makes it clear that she will not sit quietly while her friend suffers. Her bluntness only intensifies the already simmering tensions in town, drawing clearer lines between those who support Lulu and those who are willing to give Britt a chance. Meanwhile, Lulu's desperation begins to edge into dangerous territory. One night, she sits in her living room surrounded by old photographs of Rocco, her hands trembling as she clutches them to her chest. The thought of losing him permanently gnaws at her until it becomes unbearable. In a haze of grief, she considers taking matters into her own hands. The idea of a custody appeal feels too slow, too uncertain. Instead, her mind drifts toward something more drastic, snatching Rocco back, even if it means breaking the law. The thought terrifies her, but it also tempts her with the possibility of reclaiming the life that was stolen from her. Laura catches wind of Lulu's state of mind and intervenes, pleading with her daughter not to make a mistake that could ruin her chances of ever regaining custody legally. If you go down that road, Laura warns softly, you won't just lose Rocco. You'll lose yourself. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. Lulu breaks down in her mother's arms, torn between the desperate pull of her emotions and the rational voice telling her to stay strong. It is a heartbreaking scene, one that underscores just how far she has fallen and how close she is to losing everything, including her sanity. As all of this unfolds, Britt faces her own private battles. Despite her outward confidence, she cannot escape her past. Old enemies resurface to remind her of the damage she caused, the lives she manipulated, and the chaos she left in her wake. Every time someone whispers her old nickname, the Britt, she feels the sting of doubt in her chest. Can she really rewrite her story, or is she destined to fail just as spectacularly as she once did? The more she questions herself, the more determined she becomes to prove everyone wrong. Still, the cracks are beginning to show, and the people closest to her can see it. In the end, Lulu and Britt stand as two women locked in an emotional tug-of-war over a little boy who has no idea how much he means to both of them. To Lulu, Rocco is her heart, her identity, her reason for breathing. To Britt, he is her redemption, her chance to prove that she is more than the mistakes of her past. Neither is willing to back down, and the battle threatens to consume them both. As weeks turn into months, the custody battle leaves emotional scars that refuse to heal. Lulu, once vibrant and hopeful, has begun to crumble under the weight of her loss. She no longer recognizes the person she has become, an anxious, sleepless woman haunted by the thought of her son living under someone else's care. Every social media post, every casual mention of Rocco by someone in town, feels like salt on an open wound. She spends countless hours replaying the courtroom proceedings in her mind, analyzing every word, every gesture, every fleeting moment where the decision might have swung in her favor. The guilt, the regret, and the despair create a suffocating fog that she cannot escape. Even her friends struggle to reach her. Maxie and Laura try to pull her back from the brink, but Lulu is increasingly defensive, lashing out at anyone who dares suggest patience or rationality. Her love for Rocco has become almost a single-minded obsession, and in her eyes, every plan to wait it out is an insult to her devotion. Dante tries to intervene, but his presence only exacerbates the tension. He wants to support Lulu, but he also wants to maintain a semblance of stability for Rocco. Their conversations descend into arguments, their shared grief warped into recriminations. Once the most united parental team in Port Charles, Lulu and Dante now feel like strangers, circling each other warily and ready to strike with hurtful words. Meanwhile, Britt is facing her own battles, though they are of a different nature. While she enjoys the rare moments of joy with Rocco, the quiet bedtime stories, the laughter echoing through her apartment, she cannot ignore the shadow that lurks behind every interaction. She is constantly aware of Lulu's pain, of Dante's conflicted loyalty, and of the whispers from neighbors and former colleagues who doubt her transformation. The pressure to prove herself as a capable and loving mother becomes relentless. Each mistake she makes feels magnified, each small setback a reminder of her precarious position. And even as she projects confidence, the fear that she could lose Rocco haunts her in every quiet moment. Rocco himself is caught in the middle of this storm. He is young enough to adjust, yet old enough to sense tension, fear, and heartbreak in the adults around him. He misses Lulu deeply, often asking when he can see her without restrictions. He adores Britt, who dotes on him and tries to fill the gaps left by his mother's absence, but the confusion is evident. Nights are the hardest, as he clings to Britt for comfort but whispers Lulu's name in his sleep. Britt watches him, torn between pride in her role and guilt over the circumstances that brought him into her care. Every smile feels bittersweet, a reminder that while she has achieved her goal, the victory came at a cost. Port Charles itself becomes a microcosm of the conflict. The townspeople take sides, some vocally supporting Lulu, rallying behind her in social gatherings, social media debates, and whispered conversations. Others, convinced that Britt has genuinely reformed, defend her claim, praising her for her newfound maturity and stability. The rift grows wider each day, making even casual encounters tense. What was once a relatively peaceful town is now a powder keg of opinion, gossip, and speculation. And in the center of it all are two women whose lives are consumed by a child neither can fully control. Lulu's desperation begins to manifest in risky decisions. She contemplates ways to legally challenge Britt's custody, diving deep into the minutiae of the law and scouring for any procedural error or overlooked evidence. At the same time, she considers more reckless options, fueled by the intensity of her grief and love for Rocco. Each night, she wrestles with her conscience, knowing that any impulsive action could jeopardize her chances of ever reclaiming her son. Yet the temptation is almost unbearable. The thought of Rocco's happiness in another woman's care, even one who seems well-intentioned, stirs a rage and sorrow that threatens to consume her entirely. Dante continues to walk a precarious line, attempting to maintain a relationship with both women while prioritizing his son's well-being. He is a mediator, but also a participant in the conflict, torn between the mother he once loved and the mother he fears is better equipped to provide stability. The emotional burden begins to weigh heavily on him. Sleepless nights and constant worry take a toll, and he begins to realize that there may be no perfect solution. Every choice he makes risks hurting someone he cares about, yet inaction feels impossible. Meanwhile, Britt's sense of victory is tested as well. Though she has Rocco in her care, she faces mounting scrutiny from lawyers, social workers, and concerned citizens. Every minor misstep becomes fodder for criticism, every emotional reaction a potential liability. Her polished exterior begins to crack under the weight of expectation. The fear of losing Rocco begins to manifest in subtle ways: hesitation in decision-making, overcompensation in parenting, and a constant anxiety that the next setback could undo all her hard work. Even Rocco senses her unease at times, asking pointed questions about why she seems worried when he is happy. The tension reaches a boiling point when an unexpected event forces both women to confront the reality of their situation. A minor accident involving Rocco at school triggers panic in both households. Britt is immediately present, soothing him and handling the situation, while Lulu, though desperate to help, is kept at a distance due to the court's restrictions. Watching from afar, Lulu feels the intensity of her helplessness, and Britt is confronted with the tangible consequences of being the primary caregiver. The incident is minor in practical terms, but symbolic in emotional terms, crystallizing the stakes for everyone involved. Through it all, the custody battle continues to redefine the lives of Lulu, Britt, and Dante. The past, present, and future of all three are intertwined with Rocco's well-being, creating a tension that is almost unbearable. Every day brings new challenges, new emotional landmines, and new questions about who truly deserves to raise him. The town watches, waits, and whispers as the drama unfolds in what may be the most devastating chapter of Lulu's life and the most consequential for Britt's redemption. The months following the custody ruling stretch endlessly, leaving Lulu trapped in a cycle of grief and obsession. Each day without Rocco chips away at her sense of self, leaving her fragile and volatile. She finds herself replaying every moment leading up to the courtroom decision, scrutinizing her words, her actions, and even the choices she made long before custody was ever questioned. Every mistake feels magnified, every lapse a justification for Britt's success. Friends and family try to intervene, offering support and advice, but Lulu is unreachable. Her mind is a storm of what-ifs and if-onlys, and nothing can pierce the cloud of despair that surrounds her. One night, in the quiet hours of the early morning, Lulu sits alone in her living room, photographs of Rocco scattered across the coffee table. She traces her fingers over his smiling face in each picture, whispering apologies she feels incapable of keeping. The thought of him growing up in Britt's care twists her stomach with a combination of anguish and rage. She feels helpless, frustrated, and profoundly powerless. Her grief has evolved into a dangerous determination. She begins to consider extreme measures to regain custody, questioning whether the law alone can ever restore what she has lost. Lulu's internal conflict grows more intense when Dante visits her, hoping to reassure her that she is not alone in the fight for Rocco. He gently explains that while Britt has custody now, there are legal avenues they can pursue together. But Lulu, consumed by emotion, cannot accept his calm reasoning. In her eyes, Dante's patience feels like complicity with Britt, a betrayal that cuts deeper than the courtroom verdict ever could. Their conversation escalates into a confrontation, each word weighted with unresolved anger, past heartbreaks, and the raw grief of losing a child. By the end, both are left exhausted, their connection strained almost beyond repair. Meanwhile, Britt continues to project the image of the ideal caregiver. She attends parent-teacher meetings, organizes extracurricular activities, and envelopes Rocco in a world that is orderly, loving, and structured. To outsiders, she appears to be thriving in her new role. But beneath the surface, Britt wrestles with a gnawing anxiety that she cannot fully shake. She worries that Rocco senses her fear and uncertainty, that Lulu's absence is creating a void she cannot fill, and that her past will come back to haunt her at any moment. Every small misstep, forgetting a school form, missing a minor appointment, feels catastrophic. Her victories are shadowed by the ever-present fear of losing him, making the weight of motherhood heavier than she anticipated. Rocco, too, feels the tension that surrounds him. He is perceptive enough to notice the unspoken anxiety between the adults in his life. Though he adores Britt and enjoys the structure she provides, he continues to ask about Lulu, asking questions that are innocent on the surface but loaded with emotional weight. His confusion and longing pierce both women's hearts, forcing them to confront the reality that no victory can fully erase the bonds of love and loss. For Rocco, this is not just a custody battle, it is the center of his world, the measure of love and attention he receives, and the source of his growing understanding that life is often unfair. Port Charles becomes a crucible for the conflict, with residents taking sides and tensions rising in subtle and overt ways. Social gatherings, once lighthearted, now carry undercurrents of judgment and tension. Some townspeople openly criticize Britt, insisting that she has manipulated her way into custody and that Lulu's maternal love cannot be dismissed. Others defend Britt, highlighting her apparent transformation and arguing that she provides the stability Rocco needs. The community is divided, and the conflict spills into every corner of social life, making it impossible for either woman to navigate daily life without confronting the ongoing struggle. Lulu's desperation begins to manifest in more dangerous forms of impulsivity. She spends late nights researching legal loopholes, exploring potential witnesses who could testify in her favor, and even considering ways to subtly undermine Britt's authority without alerting the court. Each new idea consumes her, leaving her increasingly detached from her own well-being. Her friends notice the obsession growing, warning her that the intensity of her focus may ultimately destroy her if she is not careful. But Lulu is beyond listening. The thought of Rocco's laughter fading from her life drives her forward with a near-blind determination. Even Britt, despite her apparent success, is not immune to the psychological toll of the battle. The constant awareness that Lulu is watching, plotting, and desperate to reclaim her son keeps her on edge. She begins to overcompensate in her parenting, spending hours creating elaborate schedules and meticulously controlling every aspect of Rocco's life. While well-intentioned, her hypervigilance reveals the anxiety that lurks beneath her confident exterior. In quiet moments, she questions whether she truly belongs in Rocco's life or whether she is merely a temporary guardian until Lulu finds a way to reclaim him. As the emotional stakes rise, the tension among the trio, Lulu, Britt, and Dante, reaches a crescendo. Their lives are consumed with Rocco's well-being, and every interaction becomes a delicate negotiation between fear, love, guilt, and ambition.